You see little groups. Why should I play something loud just because it's dissonant? And that is exactly what you are deciding upon when you are creating your interpretation of the piece. Hi, this is Brett with Piano Aha. In this video we want to talk about another aspect of Bach's Prelude in C major, specifically how to play the piece in a more beautiful way or perhaps in a more interesting way. And the aspect that we want to talk about is consonant chords as opposed to dissonant chords, and how that leads you to play some things loud and others soft. Let me show you what I mean. So let's start in measure 1. If we take a look at this chord, we discover that there are no dissonant intervals. And what I mean by that is, the names aren't important, but I have a major third, a minor third, and a fifth. And if you just play these, you can hear that they sound harmonious, in other words, consonant. So what I'm going to stress in this video is, if you have a chord like this, with nothing dissonant in it, then you do not need to play it loud. Let's take a look now at measure 2. Here we really do have some dissonances. And what I'm going to be stressing again in this video is that such a chord that has some dissonances can be played louder. Let's take a look at measure 3 and 4. Here again in measure 3 we have some dissonances, and measure 4 is absent of dissonances. So we have a principle that chords containing dissonant intervals can be played loud, ones containing only consonant intervals can be played quiet. Now you might ask yourself, why should I play something loud just because it's dissonant, or why should I play it soft because it's consonant? Now, you don't have to, but there is a reason why you might want to do that. Let's think of an example. Let's say your name is Bob Smith, and you're at a reunion, a Smith family reunion. So everyone there is named Smith. How would you introduce yourself? You probably wouldn't introduce yourself as being Bob Smith, because everyone's name is Smith. Why would you say Smith loud? If, on the other hand, you were at a meeting of people named Bob, you probably wouldn't introduce yourself as Bob Smith, right? Everyone's name is Bob. Why would you say Bob loud? Same thing is going on here. So if I have a piece in C major, as we have here, then there are going to be a lot of C major chords, and they're not going to surprise us very much. But I also have other chords that have certain dissonances between these C major chords, for example. And those are what make the piece what it is. The fact that C major chords happen in a piece called Prelude in C major doesn't surprise us at all. We want to accent the things that are new or somehow unknown. And the same goes for all of the other dissonant chords and the consonant chords. Basically, you can think of the consonant chords as being things that are more or less clear, and the dissonant chords, the way you're getting to these consonant chords, are the pieces of information that are interesting. So let's return to our examples of measure 1 to 4. We said before that it's clear measure 1 would be quieter than measure 2. And we also said before it's clear that measure 3 would be louder than measure 4. But we didn't talk about between measure 2 and measure 3. Which one of those is more dissonant? Well, you might count up which intervals are more dissonant, or you might just take a listen, and maybe you come to the conclusion that measure 3 is indeed more dissonant. That would give you a dramatic arc of starting at measure 1, you build up a little to measure 2, you build up more to measure 3, and then you have a release. On the other hand, you could look at measure 2 and say, well, yeah, that might be that there are theoretically fewer dissonant intervals, but the lowest two notes that get played right after each other and are held for basically the entire measure, those sound very dissonant. So for you, maybe that measure is the loudest one. In other words, the dramatic arc is now like this. We start on C, we go to something very dissonant, we have a little bit of a release, and then more of a release. So those two dramatic arcs are different. And that is exactly what you are deciding upon when you are creating your interpretation of the piece. In other words, there is no right or wrong answer here. Or I might say it this way. Although there might be wrong answers, there are many right answers. So let's just take a look at a couple of examples. For example, measure 12 and 13. I said before, there may be wrong answers. And what I'm saying here is, it would be wrong to say measure 12 is more consonant than measure 13. That is abundantly clear. Same for measure 14 and 15. That's very dissonant, and that is very consonant. But it is your decision as to how much you would like to accentuate these consonances and dissonances. I'm not saying that you should make an exaggerated effort to play the dissonant ones loud. I'm not saying you should play like this, for example, measure 12 and 13. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying you should introduce yourself as Bob Smith, right? This is just a subtle difference to make it more interesting to play this piece from beginning to end. So seeing the piece through this lens allows you to divide up the piece a little bit more. Instead of just seeing an ocean of sameness from the beginning to the end of this piece, you see little groups that maybe belong together, and you have sort of an idea of what could be loud and what could be soft, instead of just having the idea that this piece is the same volume from the beginning to the end. In any case, thanks for watching this video, and happy ahas.